In this video, we're going to be looking at some basic commands to navigate around the Linux operating system. I'll be using VirtualBox to run Linux on Windows, and before we start, I just want to say that the best way to learn is by doing, so I highly recommend following along and trying these commands out for yourself to get practice and to build the muscle memory. To begin, we can see that I'm logged in as user shell yeah, and I'm currently inside of my home folder, which is what this tilde represents. We can type ID, and we can see our user's ID, our group ID, and the groups that our user belongs to. We can also type whoami, and we can see that we're logged in as this user. This could be particularly useful if we're switching users frequently for permissions or for other reasons. A very useful command is to print which current working directory we're in. So we can type pwd, and we can see that we are in the home/shell yeah folder. So this is going to be really helpful when you're navigating around the Linux operating system. If we want to see which operating system we're running, such as Linux or AX, we can type uname, and you can see here that it returns Linux. What about the shell we're running? How do we find that out? So to do that, we can use echo, and echo is just going to return something that we provided to the command prompt. So we could type hi, and you can see it echoes back hi to us. It also works with variables, so we can type $shell for the shell variable, and we can see here that it returned bash, which is the born again shell. Next, let's go ahead and clear our output, and we'll start talking about listing files out. So ls stands for list, and you can see here that it's going to list out 5 objects here. They could be directories, they could be files. I know that they're directories because they're blue, but that's not always the case. So what's more common is to provide ls a long listing flag, and we can see here that it gives us a whole bunch of information. So we can see right off the bat that these are directories because we have a D over here. We can see permissions in this section. We can see the user and the group that owns this file or folder, as well as the size in bytes, and a timestamp, and the name. So over here with permissions, I'll cover this in another video, but a brief rundown is these first 3 here represent the user, these 3 represent the group, and these represent others. So we can see here that this user, shell yeah, has read, write, and execute permission, and the group also has read, write, and execute permission. But anyone else, they can read and they can execute things inside of these directories, but they can't write into them. So that's really useful if you're trying to prevent others from modifying your stuff or placing something there that they shouldn't be placing there. So up next, we'll go ahead and try out the A flag. So this is commonly paired with L, and this is going to show all of your hidden items. So we can see here we have some dot files, and you see there's no D over here, so these are files. Here's a dot folder. Here's another one. And then we have these 2 here. So what are these 2 right here? So this dot represents the current folder that we're in. So we can see here that this folder, this home folder here, if I do another pwd, so we are in this user's home folder, and it has these permissions. This dot dot represents a folder 1 level up, and it has these permissions over here. It's owned by root, and it has this size. Next, we can sort by time using the -t flag, and we're going to go ahead and add the L so we can see these timestamps. So we can see here that it puts the newest file on the top, as opposed to before without the T, it's just going to sort alphabetically. We could add an R to that, so we'll do ls -ltr, and that's going to sort reverse with the newest files on the bottom. So this could be really handy if you have a whole bunch of files. So let's just do this. We'll do a ltar, and we can see here now the hidden files are in there as well. So if you're trying to find the most recently edited files, you can use this, and you can see, okay, the most recently changed thing is this folder right here called files. We can also do a sort by size. So if we want to see what the biggest files are, we can go ahead and do that, and we can see here that the files folder is the largest one at 54 bytes. We can also do a recursive call of our home folder like this. And this is a really cool one. So we'll go ahead and start at the top. Okay, so this is where we entered the command, and we can see here the user's home folder is going to have these 5 things that we've seen before, but it's also going to go inside of the first one here, cool stuff, and it's going to see, okay, we have a hobbies and we have a recipes folder, and they're both empty. And then it's going to go to the next one, files. We'll scroll down a little bit. Files has 3 folders inside of here, and inside of each of those folders, some of them have a file inside and some of them don't, and so on. So this ls-r is really useful. Now you got to be careful if you go back to the root folder, for example, and we do a ls-r, you can see all this output. So if you want to get out of this, just do a control C. You're going to see this pops up, and that's going to cancel out of that so that you can get back to doing what you need to do. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and show you one last thing. So we'll go into the home. We'll do a ls-lh, and what this is going to do is it's going to convert these file sizes to a human readable format. So we can see here they show as 4 kilobytes, whereas if I do it without the h, you have this 4096 bytes. So this is really handy if you're dealing with super large files. You're going to see a string of 7 or 8 different numbers, and you could use this ls-lh if you want to get a better idea of the size, and it'll make it nice and easy. Lastly, we can provide a path. So if we are in the home and we want to take a look at the user's home folder slash files slash orders, we want to take a peek inside of that folder without going into it, we can provide this. And we can see here there's that order1.txt file that we saw earlier. Okay, let's clear the screen. Now let's learn to navigate around this system. And you've probably seen me do CD a couple times here already. So CD stands for change directory, and it does just that. It allows us to change directories and move around the system. So if we were to do a CD dot, that's not really going to be very useful. It's just going to keep us right where we are because we know that this dot represents our current directory that we're in. And then if we do a CD dot dot, it's going to take us up 1 level. So it's going to take us back to root. So there we are. So what you can do is you can provide a /home and then keep building your path from there, and you can dive into any folders that you want to go into. So you can see here now we're over here. Okay, so this would be a good time to talk about when to use the slash and when not to. So if we take a look inside of this files folder, we can go into this orders folder just by doing a cd orders. So we didn't provide the slash there because this slash actually represents a folder on its own, the root folder. And if we want to provide a full path, that's when you're going to use that first slash. So we could do this and we're exactly where we were before. But if we're not providing an absolute path, including this root folder, then we never really want to use that slash except to separate these different folders that are inside. So if I was to try a cd/orders, you're going to see that it fails because there really is nothing called orders in this root directory. So we'll head over there, we'll do a pwd and a lsl. And you can see here in between opt and proc, there is no orders folder. That's why we were having that difficulty. So we'll go back to our home directory with the cd tilde, and let's clear the screen. Okay, so tilde, that'll take you back to your home directory. There's another really cool one that we can learn about really quickly, and it's this cd hyphen. So this hyphen is really going to take us back to wherever we just were. So you can see now we're in the root, and now we're back in home. And you can do it as many times as you want. It's going to take you wherever you just were. So I can go over here and I can do a cd files/orders, and then I could do a cd hyphen and head back to my home folder. So we talked about the cd hyphen, the cd root, and the cd home, and we've talked about subdirectories and absolute paths. So there's one last thing I'd like to cover is this. So if you have a folder with a space inside of it, you're not going to be able to get inside by doing this. The solution is really easy. Just surround that thing in quotes, and you're good to go. You could also do single quotes if you like. Okay, finally, to wrap this thing up, we're going to look at a couple shortcuts and tips to make your navigation journey a little bit easier. So what we could do is we could use the up and down arrows on our keyboard, and it'll pull up some of the things that we've typed previously, and we could recall those. So for example, if I was here, you could even edit this based on your needs. So that's up and down arrows. Those are really handy. Another way to look at what you've done in the past is just simply type history, and you can see here's some of the commands that we've typed. So let's say I was from my home directory. I want to get inside of this home shell yeah files orders, but I don't remember the exact path. I could look here. I could always copy this and paste it down here, but there's an even faster way. You can see that this is command 217. We can do a exclamation 217, and it's going to do exactly this. It's going to run that entire thing. So for example, I'll do this. We'll have to type history again. Okay, we can see it updated. We're going to do this 228, and we're going to be able to take a peek. We'll run this command. So this is really useful if you have commands that are super long. You really don't want to have to type them out, or you don't want to grab them from a notepad or something and you put them in here. You could always look in your history, make changes if needed. Lastly, we're going to look at something called tab completion. So let's actually clear the screen and do a ls-l. And we want to go ahead and get into some of these folders, but we really don't want to type everything out. So we could do a cd, type the first letter of one of these. We'll go for cool stuff this time. And we'll push tab, and you can see it automatically completes, right? And if you push tab again, you'll see it's going to tell you what's inside of there. So we'll do a H tab, and it's going to complete. And then we can just push enter, and it's going to get us in there. So this tab completion is really useful to move around quickly. And I don't think I mentioned this before. Just like you can CD into one folder / another folder, you can CD back one level / back two levels. So that's a good one to know. And you could even do 3 or however many levels you like. And just one more demo of the tab completion. So we'll do a capital S tab. We'll hit tab a couple times and just keep on hitting tab, and it's going to tell you exactly what you have. And just like that, that's how it works. All right, so that's going to wrap up this video. I hope you learned something. If you would like to see any other topics covered in the future, just drop them down in the comment section below. And in the next video, I'll be covering how to change permissions and ownership on files, adding and removing files and folders, and some ways of reading files. Thank you for watching.